software engineers that work in Europe will never, ever earn the same amount as engineers that work in the US or in some parts of Asia, but this is a topic for another video. And there's a reason for this. This is not for a random reason. There are actually three big reasons of why European tech companies cannot pay Europeans, their workers, the same amount as US companies. And the first of them, and the most logical one, is that the US simply has bigger companies. Of course, US we have right here. We have stuff like we have Google, we have Amazon, we have Netflix, like we have Facebook, we have Meta, like this both of them are the same, but anyway, right? We have Anthropic. What else? Well, anyway, these companies are one of the biggest outliers in history, if not the biggest outliers in history when it comes to a company, right? There has never been a company as big as Google or Amazon or Netflix or Meta or whatever you want to say, right? I don't know, Nvidia, Intel. If I'm not mistaken, Intel is from US. But anyway, these companies right here are just outliers. And of course, we have a lot of big tech companies in the EU, right? So, for example, we have Spotify. What's the name of that? ASML. We have SAP. We have this is Spotify. I already said it. We have Revolut, a very big bank here. There are a bunch of banks in Europe uh, that are in need for developers. But the thing is, even though Spotify is a very big one, it's not like it doesn't have as many engineers and it doesn't need as many engineers as Google, as Amazon, as Netflix, as Meta, as Nvidia, as Intel, and etc. And so that's just it, right? So US has bigger companies. Well, why does the US has bigger companies? Because the US got lucky in throughout history, the US got lucky and they were in a good position at the start of the computer scene, back when like Bill Gates was a little child, a little bit earlier, but anyway. And then they just went ahead, and there's very very big history thing with Silicon Valley and IBM being there, and a lot of like startups and a lot of engineers had nowhere to go, and computers weren't a big thing. But this is a whole history class. But basically, the US has bigger companies, and this implies something very important. If you stop to think about US companies, you can list them by heart, right? So you know that Google is like from US, Amazon, Meta, Netflix, Nvidia, Intel, IBM. And it's a little bit hard to list European companies simply because there are less European companies. So if you think about it just a little bit, here we have one engineer. And this engineer, if he's a good one, he's a good programmer, a good developer, whatever you want to say, he has a lot of options to choose to where to work. Therefore, there is bigger competition. So the US has a bigger competition, which basically means that if you live in the US or if you're trying to work for the US, you have more companies to choose. And if a lot of companies are competing for the same person, this person can decide how much they earn. And this is the basic like supply and demand chain where this guy right here is gonna become a millionaire in like 5 years, which is different from the EU. Oh, also something I forgot to mention: the US is a lot more receptive when hiring. So US hires more. The US hires more. And I'm gonna explain why, because there a lot again, there's a good reason for this. But US hire more and they are more willing to pay people to do stuff, which is different from Europe. And the biggest reason why Europe cannot hire as many times as the US is something that is a blessing and a curse at the same time, depending on how you view it. And the biggest reason are laws and regulations. In Europe, we have here a lot of social network securities where if you lose your job, you have a lot of ways not to go homeless and not to be broke and not to like want to kill yourself. And also there are a lot of worker rights that I'm totally pro, by the way. But the thing is, in Europe, companies need to pay a lot more to the government because usually, so we have our government here. Because in Europe, let's come here. In Europe, Europe has bigger taxes, which of course is gonna make all these companies right here say nah. Because if you want to hire someone and you want to pay them 80K yearly, the company usually, if I'm not mistaken, and this is a round number, very round number, just like I'm just estimating here. If I'm not mistaken, the company needs to pay 30K for the government. Usually, again, this is like an average. You need to do your study for your own country. But yeah, like this is a lot to pay for one worker, right? Even though like Revolut has like but is a very big company and SAP, Spotify, of course, one of the biggest companies in the world, a lot of big banks. This is 30K. 30K is still 30K. And by the way, this is one of the highest salaries in Europe. This is something worth mentioning when we're talking about developers, of course. And yeah, so the US has a bigger competition, and it has a bigger competition because it has more companies. And if it has more companies, of course, companies will want more developers, and few developers are gonna compete for those companies. Something very important as well is that Europe is huge, and so is the US. But the thing about the US is that it has a single market. So if you want to open a company and if you want to create a company and you want to work in a whole country scale in the US, you just need to follow one law because the system law, even though states have their own like unique laws and a bunch of weird stuff, it's one language to work with, like a common law where all 50, 51, I don't know how many states are obliged to comply, and a kinda very a lot of codes here, kinda similar culture throughout the whole US, which is very different in Europe because if you want to open a company and you want to provide for a lot of different countries, each country has their own regulations plus the EU regulations. So this is a pain in the ass, which is why a lot of people that are from Europe, they migrate to US to open their company, and then after a while they come back to Europe and they work in their company in the US from Europe. And this is why. Another very big reason, and the main reason that makes salaries different, like in all of this, is that big companies in the US, so like big tech in US, they are willing to pay a lot of stocks, bonds, shares. They have sign-in bonuses. And these boys right here, these big boys here, signing bonuses and stocks slash bonuses slash shares are a huge difference, right? So in the US, for example, you can have. I've seen people that say, right? They're saying it might not be true, but I see no reason why they would lie about this. They have a 30K signing bonus, a 50K signing bonus. Some companies 80K sign bonus. This is a whole salary in Europe, by the way, a high salary in Europe. Whereas in Europe, if you have, oh, and of course, some people have 250K in stocks, by the way, after like, oh, if you work in this company for like 5 years or something, or 10, or insert time zone you want here, uh, you're gonna get this compensation, which is ridiculously huge. And yes, whereas in Europe, this might be 20K. And a signing bonus is like a myth. Me, for example, I have never seen someone from Europe saying that they got a signing bonus, even if they work for a FANG company. I might be wrong if someone here knows someone from a FANG company in Europe and they work there. Would be amazing if you tell me. But yeah, uh, signing bonuses are a myth, as far as I'm aware. As far as I know, this is a myth here in Europe. And when we have stocks and bonds, they you just cut the zero here and maybe subtract and turn it into a 20, maybe make it 30. After again like 5, 7, 9 years, etc. Yeah, so this is the first reason, right? So competition and more competition. So more competition will make everything here come true. All right, cool. So the second reason. Oh no, I just I was stupid. I just said all the reasons altogether. Yeah, these are the three different reasons. By the way, has bigger companies, therefore they can hire more, and Europe has bigger regulations, and then big tech. However, However, it doesn't mean that just because you are paid like 300K per year, that you are rich. I know some people that, for example, they live in San Francisco or they live in California near a lot of big tech environments. This is, by the way, just things I heard and saw online. Okay, I've never lived in US. I have no property to say this for sure, but this is what I heard. Uh, some people pay 7K on rent. Of course, this number can be like 5K or like 3K in rent. But this, throughout the year, is 36K. So yeah, and then groceries are a lot of like groceries are expensive. But the big thing in the US, which I really don't get, health insurance. You guys in the US are insane. You guys pay like my sister is diabetic, and you know how much we pay per insulin. Every single insulin she has costs $0 or like €0, if you may. I've seen people that pay $300 for this. You need an ambulance, $2,000. What is wrong with you? But anyway, this to say, some things in Europe are better, I think, than the US. So we work less hours. So we have less work hours. We have more PTO slash paid vacation. We have more work-life balance. We have a lot of laws and regulations that protect the workers. There are a lot of social nets, uh, social security nets, I guess. Social security nets. And then, of course, every single person has their own single take on this. Me, for example, I would rather live in Europe than the US because of this and this. But this doesn't mean that Europe is perfect. Of course, I would love to be paid 40K per year, 50K per year. But again, in Europe, we have this thing, yeah, taxes, basically. Taxes in Europe are so high. And and again, everyone will have their own take on this. Some people think it's worth it, some people think it doesn't. So, like, in Finland, for example, Finland sometimes, if I'm not mistaken, they have like a plus 50% taxes. If you earn more than like 70K per year gross, I think I might be wrong though. This is a lot. So if you want in your bank account, like if you want to have a lot of money and if you want to, I don't know, have a very high luxury lifestyle, maybe Finland might not be for you. Uh, But if you just want to raise your family, if you want to have a lot of kids, and you think that uh, and the best country in your opinion is Finland, and it has like a good security, education is good, healthcare is good. Of course, the weather, it depends on what you like. So, for example, Finland has a lot of this here. So it just depends on what you want, honestly. And yeah, this is why European developers or any workers, to say, will never, 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 ever earn the same amount as US workers. This is just impossible unless every single of this company decides to join the European market hard. Then, yeah, then every single salary in Europe is going to increase. Governments will be so happy because there will be a lot of taxes. So yeah, that's it. Bye bye.